They told you the truth didn't matter, that if you kept your head down, if you played the game the way they wanted, you might just make it. That if you silenced your doubts, swallowed your pain, and smiled through the suffering, you'd be okay. They told you that questioning things would only bring chaos, that stepping out of line would bring consequences. So you listened. You buried the fire. You folded yourself into the spaces they allowed, shrinking, dimming, disappearing. But the truth does not die in silence. It does not dissolve just because you were told to ignore it. It lingers, it festers, it waits. And no matter how deeply they try to bury it, no matter how desperately they try to suffocate it with distractions, noise, and fear, it always finds a way to rise. Today, it rises through you, and they will never escape the truth you reveal. You feel it, don't you? That whisper inside you that never stopped. The quiet, nagging feeling that something was never quite right. The weight of a world that never seemed to fit, like a suit tailored for someone else, stitched together with lies they expected you to wear. They shaped your reality before you even had a chance to choose. They handed you scripts before you could write your own. And so you followed, because what choice did you have? But deep down, you always knew. You always knew there was something more, something bigger than the carefully curated illusion they wanted you to believe. A part of you resisted, even if it was just in the still moments between their noise. You felt it in the quiet nights when the world stopped telling you who to be. You saw it in the cracks of the masks they wore, in the way their voices wavered when they spoke their supposed truths. And now, you're here, standing at the edge of a realization you cannot ignore. This moment, right here, is where everything changes. This is not just another speech, not just another set of words to consume and discard. This is a reckoning, a collision between the illusion they fed you and the reality you are finally ready to see, because once you see it, there is no going back. Once you allow yourself to acknowledge the truth that has been clawing its way to the surface, you cannot unsee it, and that terrifies them. They built entire systems to keep you from this moment. They structured entire lives, entire narratives, entire belief systems around ensuring that you never questioned, never resisted, never dared to look beyond the curtain. But what they didn't account for was the sheer force of truth itself. Because the truth does not beg, the truth does not wait for permission, the truth does not care how many walls they build. It breaks them, and today it breaks through you. You are not here by accident. You are not reading these words because of coincidence. You are here because something in you is ready. Something in you has been waiting for this confirmation, this moment of clarity, this undeniable force that tells you, you were right all along. This is for you. Yes, you. Not the version of you they made you believe in, not the diluted, palatable version of yourself you've been selling to the world just to keep the peace. No, this is for the real you. The you that has been buried under layers of conditioning, under expectations that were never yours to carry, under fear that was never truly your own. The you that has been suffocating under the weight of a world that never really saw you. You have felt it, haven't you? The exhaustion of pretending, the frustration of playing by rules that never made sense, of following paths that led you nowhere, of speaking in tones that didn't belong to you. You have done everything they asked, and yet, somehow, you are still searching, still waiting, still aching for something more. Because what they never told you, what they never wanted you to know, is that their version of success, their version of happiness, their version of truth was never meant to include you. It was meant to control you. But here you are, standing at the threshold of a realization that changes everything. And the question is, what will you do with it? Because you cannot unsee what is now staring you in the face. You cannot return to the comfort of ignorance, not now. You cannot go back to being who you were yesterday, pretending that the fire inside you was never lit. This is your moment, and it will not wait for you. You think you have time, but time has never been yours to waste. You think you can postpone the truth, that you can set it aside for another day, another week, another lifetime. But the truth does not wait. The truth does not soften itself for your convenience. The truth is relentless, and whether you embrace it now or fight it until your last breath, it will always find its way to you. So here is the real question. Are you ready? Are you ready to burn down the lies? To strip away everything that was never yours? To face the parts of yourself you've been avoiding? Because once you step through this door, there is no returning to the illusion. Once you open your eyes, they will never close again. This world is built on the backs of those who dare not see. It thrives on their blindness, their submission, their silence. It rewards those who conform and punishes those who resist. But what happens when the resistance grows too strong? What happens when the ones who were meant to stay silent begin to speak? You happen. You were never meant to stay in the shadows. You were never meant to live in the margins of someone else's story. You were never meant to play a role that wasn't yours. And yet, they convinced you otherwise. They made you believe you were powerless, that your voice was insignificant, that your presence was inconsequential. And they did it so well that you started to believe them, but no more. Today you remember. Today you reclaim everything they tried to steal. Today you see the full picture, not the watered-down version they fed you. Today you rise, not because they allowed you to, but because you were never meant to stay down. They will never escape this truth. They will never undo what has been set in motion. Because once the fire starts, it does not stop. And right now, it is burning through you. They built the walls before you were even born. They crafted the cage before you even knew you were alive. And before you had the chance to question, before you had the chance to resist, they told you this was home. They told you this was the way things had to be. They handed you a name, a set of beliefs, a collection of rules disguised as truths. And you, in your innocence, in your trust, accepted it all without question. But make no mistake, this was not a gift, it was a sentence. The world does not hand you truth, it hands you comfort, wrapped in chains. It feeds you narratives that are easier to swallow than reality, keeps you sedated on half-truths and whispered fears. You are born into a system designed to break you before you ever have a chance to break free. They teach you obedience before they teach you freedom. They teach you fear before they teach you strength. They plant doubt before you even know what it means to believe in yourself. And the worst part, you never saw the chains being placed around you. You never heard the door of your cage click shut. They made sure of that. They made sure you would never recognize your own captivity, because the most dangerous prison is the one you don't realize you're in. They fed you the lie that love must be earned, that worth must be proven, that success is defined by others, that happiness is something you must chase rather than something you already hold. They taught you to seek validation in the eyes of strangers, to measure your value in numbers, in approval, in applause. They trained you to fear rejection more than regret, to silence your voice in favor of belonging. They made sure you questioned yourself before you ever questioned them. And so, without realizing it, you became your own jailer. You don't need their chains anymore. You carry them inside you. Every time you second-guess yourself, every time you hesitate before speaking your truth, every time you convince yourself that your dreams are too big, too unrealistic, too impossible, you tighten the lock on your own cage, because the greatest prison is not made of steel. It is made of thoughts. The enemy was never just out there. It was always inside you. It lives in your hesitation, in your excuses, in the quiet whispers of self-doubt that creep in before you take a risk. It is the voice that tells you you are not enough. The one that reminds you of every failure, every mistake, every rejection. It is the weight in your chest when you stand on the edge of something greater, the invisible force pulling you back, telling you that you are safer where you are, that you are not meant for more. And so, you stay. You stay inside the lines they drew for you. You stay within the limits they set. You stay in the safety of the familiar even as it suffocates you. You choose comfort over truth because truth is brutal and comfort is easy. But here's what they never told you. Comfort is just another kind of prison. They made sure you would fear pain more than stagnation, that you would rather sit in quiet misery than risk the agony of growth. Because the moment you realize the bars were never real, the moment you understand that you have always had the power to walk away, their control crumbles, and they cannot afford to let you go, so they keep you afraid. Afraid of failure, afraid of rejection, afraid of standing alone, afraid of seeing the world through your own eyes instead of the lens they provided. They whisper that stepping out of the cage is dangerous, that beyond these walls is nothing but chaos, uncertainty, and pain. And for a while, you believe them, because it's easier. It's easier to stay where it's familiar, even if it's slowly killing you. It's easier to believe that this is all there is, that this is where you belong, that stepping outside means risking everything. But then one day, a crack appears, a moment of clarity, a glimpse of something bigger, a flicker of realization that maybe, just maybe, everything you've been taught was never the full truth. Maybe you were never meant to stay small. Maybe the limits were only ever illusions, placed there to keep you from seeing your own power. At first, the thought is terrifying, because what if it's true? What if the cage was never real? What if you've spent your entire life trapped by shadows? What if you had the key all along? You feel it, don't you? The weight of that realization pressing against your chest, the deep, unsettling discomfort of knowing that your life, your entire life, might have been built on lies. It shakes you. It rattles you. It makes you want to turn back, to pretend you never saw the crack in the illusion, to close your eyes and go back to sleep. Because facing this truth means one thing. It means change. And change is terrifying. Stepping out of the cage means losing the comfort of ignorance. It means taking responsibility for your own life, for your own choices, for your own power. It means breaking away from everything and everyone who ever convinced you to stay small. And that is why most people never leave. Because freedom comes at a cost. They will tell you that staying is easier, that you should be grateful for what you have, that you should not question, should not push, should not reach beyond the bars they placed around you. They will tell you that it's safer here, and you will want to believe them, because believing them means you don't have to face the unknown. But tell me, how much longer can you live like this? How much longer can you pretend you don't feel the walls closing in? How much longer can you silence the voice inside you, the one that knows you were meant for more? There is no safety in stagnation. There is no life inside a cage. You can choose to stay. You can choose to believe that this is all there is. You can choose to ignore the crack in the illusion, to pretend you never saw beyond the bars. But deep down, you will always know. You will always know that you had a choice, and that is something they will never be able to take from you. Because once you see the truth, once you hear it echo through every cell of your being, you will never be able to escape it, and neither will they. So now, the question is yours to answer. Will you stay in the cage, or will you finally set yourself free? There comes a moment when the weight becomes too much, when the walls of the world press in so tightly that you can't tell where you end and the prison begins. When every breath feels stolen, when every step feels heavier than the last. It happens quietly, unnoticed by the world. No alarms sound, no rescue comes, just an invisible descent, a slow unraveling that no one else seems to see. This is the darkest point. This is where the silence grows loud enough to consume you, where the echoes of your past, your failures, your regrets, pile on top of you like stones on a grave, where the doubts whisper in voices that sound too much like your own. You hear them, don't you? The voices that say, you were never enough, you were never meant to rise, you should have never tried. And for the first time, you wonder if they were right. You tell yourself it was foolish to believe you could be more, that you were arrogant to think you could break free. You look around and realize how alone you feel, how far you've fallen, how impossible the climb back seems. And then a thought creeps in. Soft, quiet, dangerous. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is where I stop. It's not that you want to give up, it's that you don't know how to keep going. Because how do you move forward when everything around you is pulling you under? When the hands you once reached for have let go? When the dreams you once held have slipped through your fingers? When every time you tried, you were met with failure, and every time you reached, you were left grasping at nothing? You have been here before. You have stood at the edge of this darkness, staring down into its depths, wondering if it would swallow you whole. And every time, you have pulled yourself back, have fought your way out, have convinced yourself to take one more step. But this time feels different. This time, the weight of everything is pressing down too hard, and the thought of getting up feels impossible. And maybe, just maybe, you are tired of fighting. But before you let go, before you surrender to the shadows that have been chasing you, before you decide that this world has no place for you, let me tell you something they never wanted you to know. You were never weak. You were never broken. You were never meant to be crushed beneath the weight of this world. They made you believe you were. They planted the lie that you were less capable, less worthy, less significant. They fed you the belief that your pain was a reflection of your worth, that your struggles defined you, that your failures were proof that you were not enough. And you believed them, because how could you not? When every mistake was used as evidence against you, when every stumble was met with ridicule, when every rejection carved itself into your skin like a warning, don't try again. Don't reach too far, don't dream too big. And so, piece by piece, you began to shrink. You convinced yourself that they were right, that you were never meant for more, that maybe the world is built for other people, stronger people, better people, but not you. But that was never the truth. The truth, the one they never told you, the one they fought to keep hidden, is that the fire inside you has never died, no matter how much they tried to extinguish it, no matter how many times they told you that you couldn't, that you shouldn't, that you wouldn't, no matter how many times you were knocked down, broken, lost. Because here's the thing, you are still here. Here, do you understand the power in that? The sheer, undeniable force of survival. That despite everything, despite every moment that told you to give up, despite every night that left you empty, despite every battle that left you scarred, you are still standing. They don't want you to realize that, because the moment you do, you become dangerous. The moment you understand that your pain did not destroy you, that your failures did not define you, that your struggles were never proof of your weakness, but rather the foundation of your strength, you become unstoppable. They never wanted you to know that the people who rise are not the ones who have never fallen. They are the ones who have fallen 1,000 times and still chose to stand. And that means you, too, can rise. I know it doesn't feel that way right now, I know the darkness still clings to you, whispering, pulling, convincing you that it is safer to stay down. But listen to me. The darkness is lying to you. You think this is the end, but it is not. This is the turning point. This is the moment where you decide, not them, not the world, not your past, you. This is the moment where you look the pain in the face and say, you will not break me. This is the moment where you take back every piece of yourself that was stolen, where you silence every voice that ever told you that you weren't enough, where you make the choice that most people never do, the choice to fight for yourself. Because here is the truth they don't tell you. You are worth the fight, even when it feels impossible, even when every voice in your head tells you otherwise, even when you are tired, broken, empty. You are worth it, and you always have been. So now, the question is no longer, can you keep going? The question is, will you? Because there is a future waiting for you that you cannot yet see. A version of yourself that is stronger than you ever imagined. A life beyond this darkness, beyond this pain. But you have to step into it. You have to choose to stand. Because once you do, once you take that first step, once you decide that you are done living in the lie of your own insignificance, they will never be able to escape the truth you reveal. And neither will you. There comes a moment when the illusion cracks wide open. A moment when the carefully constructed falsehoods they built around you can no longer contain the truth that has been clawing its way to the surface. At first, it is not a grand revelation. It is a flicker, a fracture in the foundation, a quiet knowing that refuses to be ignored. And then, like a dam breaking, like a blindfold being ripped away, you see, and nothing will ever be the same. You see that you were never powerless, that the chains holding you back were never made of steel, only fear, that the walls surrounding you were never real, only limits you were conditioned to believe in. You see that every moment of doubt, every whispered lie, every reason they gave you to stay small, it was all designed to keep you exactly where you are. Not because you were weak, not because you were incapable, but because they knew what you would become if you ever realized the truth. And now you do. It is terrifying at first, because when you wake up, you are no longer protected by ignorance. The illusions you once leaned on for security dissolve before your eyes, and what is left is raw, unfiltered reality. You begin to see things for what they are. You begin to see yourself for who you really are. And it is uncomfortable. Because waking up does not come with gentle hands or soft landings. It is a violent breaking, a shattering of every false belief that kept you safe in the dark. It is seeing all the ways you betrayed yourself, all the times you settled, all the choices you made out of fear rather than truth. It is standing in front of a mirror and realizing that you are no longer who you were, but you are not yet who you are meant to be. This is the threshold. This is the space between who you were and who you will become. In this space, this in-between, is where most people turn back. Not because they want to, not because they don't long for freedom, but because the pain of shedding an old self is almost too much to bear. You mourn the person you used to be. Even if that version of you was built on lies, even if that version of you lived in a cage, even if that version of you was drowning, you mourn. Because no matter how much it hurt, it was still familiar. It was still yours. And stepping into the unknown, stepping into a new self, a new life, a new truth, it's terrifying. But hear me when I say this. You cannot move forward while clinging to what was. The person you were cannot come with you into the life you are meant to have. You cannot break free while still holding onto the very chains you are trying to escape. You must let go. Not just of the past, not just of the stories that no longer serve you, but of the version of yourself that was willing to live in the lie. And that is the hardest part, because we fear what we do not know. And this new version of you, the one that stands tall, the one that speaks without apology, the one that refuses to be caged, is someone you have not fully met yet. They are waiting for you on the other side of this threshold, and the only way to reach them is to step through the fire. But listen to me, you are ready. You are always ready. And now you see the truth, because this is the shift. This is the moment where you stop looking at yourself through the lens they gave you, where you stop measuring your worth by their approval, by their validation, by their expectations. This is where you take back every piece of yourself that was stolen, where you reclaim every dream, every ounce of strength, every part of you that they told you was too much, too wild, too impossible. This is the moment you stop asking for permission to be who you were always meant to be. This is the beginning of true inner strength, because strength is not something you find, it is something you remember. And now you remember. There was never a moment when you were powerless, never a second where you lacked the strength to rise, the fire to fight, the will to break free. They just made you believe you were weak. They planted doubts in your mind before you even knew what confidence was. They built a world where power belonged to others, where choices were not yours to make, where you were taught to follow, to obey, to shrink. But you were never small. And now, you know the truth. You are not a victim. You are not someone waiting to be saved. You are not broken, not lost, not destined to live in the shadows of someone else's story. You are the storm they never saw coming. Because the power was never theirs to give, it was yours all along. It has been lying dormant inside you, waiting for this moment, waiting for the day you would finally stop asking for permission, waiting for the day you would wake up and realize that no one was ever coming to give you what you already had. And now that day has come. So tell me, what will you do with it? Will you keep playing small even now? Will you return to the version of yourself that begged for validation? Or will you finally unleash the fire that has been burning beneath the surface, waiting to consume every limitation, every doubt, every illusion that kept you caged? Because this is the moment everything changes. You do not wait anymore. You do not hesitate. Do not ask for approval. Do not let fear dictate your steps. You have spent enough time hiding, enough time doubting, enough time wondering if you were enough. You are enough. You always were. Now, you move. You rise, unafraid of the weight of your own potential. You step forward, not as the person they tried to mold you into, but as the force you were always meant to be. You reclaim your voice, your strength, your purpose, and you do it without apology. This is the turning point. This is when you stop believing in limits and start believing in yourself. This is when you refuse to be controlled, refuse to be defined by the fears of others, refuse to let the past dictate your future. And once you cross this threshold, there is no going back. You cannot return to the shadows now. You cannot pretend you do not see your own power. You cannot go back to who you used to be, because that person no longer exists. They were burned away in the fire of your awakening. Now, all that remains is you, unstoppable, undeniable, unbreakable, and the world will never be the same again. Everything they told you, tear it down. Every lie you carried, every limit they imposed, every story they forced upon you that told you who you were supposed to be, burn it all to the ground. Because you are no longer here to fit inside their illusion. You were raised in a world that taught you to doubt yourself before you even had a chance to believe in yourself. They gave you rules disguised as wisdom, fear disguised as protection, obedience disguised as virtue. And for too long, you believed them. You believed that your worth was something to be earned, that your strength was conditional, that your dreams were too much, too wild, too impossible. But now, you know better. And once you see the truth, you cannot unsee it. This is where you destroy the illusions. You take back every piece of yourself that was stolen. Every time you were told to stay silent, every time you were told to stay small, every time you convinced yourself that your power was something you had to wait for, you reclaim it now. Because no one else will do it for you. So who are you without the fear? Who are you when you strip away every false belief, every doubt, every hesitation? Who are you when you finally stand in the fullness of your strength, no longer questioning if you deserve to take up space, no longer seeking validation from a world that was never meant to hold you? This is where you redefine yourself, not as they told you to be, but as you were always meant to be, unshaken, unbound, limitless. You are no longer someone waiting to be chosen, waiting to be told you are enough, waiting for the world to recognize your worth. You decide your worth. You define yourself, not by the past, not by the pain, not by the expectations of others, but by the fire in your soul, the strength in your hands, the unshakable knowing that you were born for more. And now, you take your life back. You stop making choices out of fear. You stop hesitating, waiting, wondering if you are ready. You stop shrinking into spaces that were never meant for you, because you were never meant to live in a cage. And now, you choose courage over comfort. Because comfort is just another form of captivity. It keeps you where it's safe, where it's easy, where you never have to face the unknown. But you were not made for easy. You were not made for quiet, careful survival. You were made to burn, to break, to rise. And now you become unstoppable, because you are no longer just someone seeking the truth. You are someone who reveals it. You are the proof that freedom is possible. You are the fire that shatters illusions. You are the one who stands when others kneel. You are the one who speaks when others stay silent. And they will never be able to escape the truth you reveal. Because now, you are the truth. You are no longer who you once were. The person who doubted, who hesitated, who waited for permission to exist fully, that person is gone. The one who carried the weight of their past like a burden, who believed in limits, who feared their own voice, that person no longer exists. You have burned through every illusion, shattered every lie, and now you stand in truth. This is your final transformation. And now, everything is different. Because once you see, you cannot unsee. Once you wake up, you cannot go back to sleep. The world does not look the same anymore. The things that once controlled you, once scared you, once kept you small, they hold no power now. You see the truth everywhere. You see the ways they tried to keep you blind, the ways they tried to mold you into something you were never meant to be. And you see that you are not alone, that there are others still caught in the illusion, still bound by the lies. But you are free. You are no longer afraid, no longer waiting, no longer asking, no longer hiding. You are the storm. They wanted you to stay quiet, to stay unseen, to keep your head down and follow the path they built for you. But you were never meant to walk their path. You were meant to create your own. And now you take up space. Now you exist, fully, unapologetically, undeniably. Now you speak with a voice that cannot be silenced, move with a force that cannot be stopped. Now you step into every moment as someone who knows exactly who they are, and they will never be able to escape it. And here, because you are the proof that the illusion was never real. You are the reminder that the cage was never locked. You are the living truth that they never wanted the world to see. So now, you step forward. Not as the person you were, not as the person they wanted you to be, but as the force you were always meant to become. This is your call to action. There is no turning back. There is no shrinking, no hiding, no waiting for another time, another moment. This is it, and the world will never be the same again. You have seen the truth. You have felt it carve itself into your bones, tear through the illusions that once held you captive, ignite something inside you that can never be extinguished again. But now comes the real question, the one only you can answer. What will you do with it? Because knowing the truth is not enough. Waking up is not enough. Seeing the cage for what it was is not enough. You have to act. You have to decide, right now, in this moment, who you will be. Will you walk back into the life you once lived, pretending you never saw what you saw, pretending you never felt the fire, never heard the truth? Will you shrink back into the safety of the familiar, even knowing it was nothing more than an illusion? Or will you rise? Will you step forward, not just as someone who has seen the truth, but as someone who lives it? Will you break through the final layer of doubt, the final whisper of fear, and claim your place in the world as the person you were always meant to be? Because this is the moment that will define you. Not the ones that came before, not the struggles, not the failures, not the doubts that once held you back. This moment, right here, right now. This is where you make your choice. And when you do, everything changes. Because this is the beginning of a new path. A path where you no longer live by the rules they wrote for you. A path where you no longer seek permission, no longer chase validation, no longer wait for the right time. The right time is now, because the truth has set you free. And once you are free, you never go back. You walk forward, transformed. You walk forward, awake. You walk forward, not as a reflection of the world, but as a force that reshapes it. And now, the world will have no choice but to see you.